All right, everyone. Welcome to the Angry Asian Uncle podcast. I am your host, Reynold, and my co-host.
Hey there, guys. It's Vic.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And today we have another special guest with us, Emily. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on the show. And I think it's perfect show to be on because my my piece of the story started when I talked to not an angry Asian uncle, but a rich Asian doctor.
Oh,
And
Oh,
even better.
rich
Yeah.
Asian uncle.
exactly,
Wow.
rich Asian uncle. And I had a career in corporate America where I was working with a lot of doctors, and I had to go out to dinner one night, a work dinner with a couple doctors, and of course there was a lot of professional talk, but then it turned personal. And one of the doctors turned to the other one and said, "Hey, you got five kids. How are you gonna pay for all of their education? Like,
Mhm.
what if they all want to be doctors like you?"
Yeah.
And I grew up in a really small town in rural Michigan, very blue collar. And I expected that he was going to say some version of what I'd heard growing up, which was like you kind of squirrel away a little bit of money in a college savings account and, maybe student loans, this, that, whatever. And what he said totally blew my mind because he
Mhm.
said, "Well, I have a whole life insurance policy on every one of my children. And we use the cash value from those policies to buy a cash flowing rental property
Ooh.
under each of the children. And the cash flow from the rental property is paying back the loan against the policy. And so that when they're
Okay.
ready to go to college, they can borrow against that cash value. They can use it for their undergrad, they can use it for their medical school. And then, they have that cash to put a down payment on their first house. Now, the other doctor was like nodding along, like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, of course, that
Mhm.
makes sense." I was sitting there like, I don't know what any of this means. And it's, I do know that I'm around a different table having a different kind of conversation, and that this is part of the reason why the wealthy get wealthier
Mm.
and everyone else doesn't. Like, we think that it's a money thing. Like, well, I just don't have as much money as them, but there's actually this knowledge gap
Mm.
and this gap in the conversations that are happening. And so that was my first moment where I'm like, man, I really would like want to play the game of wealth differently. But of course, I had no idea how to do it. And so, I just went back to life as usual. And of course, there's money being auto drafted and put into my 401k. And I'm just kind of chugging along. And then one day, one of my colleagues said, "Oh, I just met with my wealth strategist yesterday." I'm like, "What?
Oh,
You have a
wealth
wealth strategist?"
strategist.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, "I want a wealth strategist."
Right.
And
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, he's very unconventional." And I was like, "Great. I want a wealth strategist. I
Yeah.
want unconventional. Can you make an introduction?"
Mm.
And that was where I really started understanding some of the ways and the tools that the wealthy use that are available to all of us to
Right.
really exponentially change um, our cash flow now and the legacy that we can leave that creates generational wealth for our kids also. So, really happy to be here and excited to dive into this topic.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes, yes. And I think I know of the strategy where you talk about the doctor is using. It's they call it infinite banking, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
infinite banking. Now, um, so knowing that, so there's two sides of the whole life policy. I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm also a big Dave Ramsey fan, so of course he doesn't believe in the whole life policy. But then there's other people, that teach the infinite banking plan that do believe in the whole life policy investment strategy. So, what's your take on that? Just
Well, my first take is that it's important that we understand that whole life insurance, it a lot of people have opinions on it. And it's really difficult to compare one opinion to the next because when we talk about infinite banking strategy or overfunded whole life, what we're basically saying is we're taking something that was intended to be used one way and we're totally hyper customizing it so that it can be used in this totally different way. So it's like you might have an opinion on plastic water bottles and whether they're good or bad or people should use them, but then you see that there's this a kid's playground and it's all been made from recycled water bottles, and it's like it technically it's the same thing, but it's totally different, and we need to make sure that we're on the same page as far as what we're talking about. So traditional whole life policies, I think, are not the greatest. And typically, if you were to talk to an insurance agent, either they're going to try to just sell you term and not sell you whole life at all, or if they do, they're going to take an off-the-shelf product and try to sell it to you. And that's not what we want at all. Now, I'm not super familiar with Dave Ramsey's opinions, but when you hyper customize a whole life policy and turn it into what we can call an infinite bank or an overfunded policy, there's a ton of upsides to it, and there's very little downside. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking dollars that normally can only be used once for one thing, right? Either this $10 bill is going into the savings jar or the spending jar or the investing jar or the retirement jar. Like it can't be in all those places at once. Right. And with infinite banking, it kind of can. And so the way the wealthy are looking at this is, how do we recycle the same dollars, right? So going back to the example of our rich Asian doctor uncle friend, he was
best
like,
kind of uncle.
Yeah. He's like, what if I put the money into this policy once, and then what does it get used for? It gets used to buy a rental property. The money gets paid back to ourselves with interest from a cash flowing asset. And then it can be used again to pay for undergrad. All that money is replenished. It can be used again to pay for medical school. All that money is replenished. It can be used again to pay for a down payment on a house. And while that money is being loaned out, it's being spent, right? It's actually still in the savings bucket too, because it's still growing with guaranteed compound interest. It's still earning dividends, and it's still providing a death benefit. So when you think about your dollars starting to be able to do 3 or 4 things at once and being recycled, the compound effect of that over time is profound.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Well,
now, I think if I had to suspect where Dave Ramsey might be concerned is, if you want to do that, where you're taking loans against your policy and such, you do have to have a level of self-discipline with your money. Now, there are ways to use overfunded whole life just to help with a retirement strategy, where you fund it just the same way you would fund a 401k. And then it has all these tremendous benefits in retirement, but you don't touch it until then. I think that would be a better strategy for folks who are still working on, self-discipline around money. And obviously Dave Ramsey is, he doesn't like debt. And I don't like debt either. And actually when I started using infinite banking, I at first was only funding my banks, and I was never taking any loans out because I didn't like the word loan.
Right.
And then I was like, well, this is silly. Like, I need to think about this differently because this is my money and I'm paying myself back with interest. So I actually make money by loaning myself money. But I just didn't like the word loan because to me it did feel like debt, and I don't like debt. So I think if I had to suspect where Dave Ramsey might be like, is he works with a lot of folks that are trying to just get out of debt and maybe haven't been the most disciplined. And, there's a trade-off. And I think, again, when we look at the wealthy are willing to add complexity to their financial system in order to create a lot of secondary and tertiary benefits.
Hmm.
But it does add complexity. Like you're not going to have your dollars doing four things at once and have it be as simple as just having your money in a checking account and then spending it when it needs to be spent. Like that's the most
Right.
simple way. It's
Hmm.
just not the wealthy way.
Right.
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 It's our ordinary way, the ordinary uncle way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I sometimes call it like blue pill, red pill. Like if you've ever watched The Matrix,
Yeah.
Right.
it's like there's the way that feels really comfortable. Like I
Yeah.
felt safer in a way when I was just putting money in a 401k because it's like that's what everybody does. And so
Yes.
no one's going to question you on that and be like, that why are you doing that? Whereas when you start going unconventional, it depends on what circles you run in. If you run with a lot of dentists and doctors or high net worth individuals,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be like, oh, yeah, sure, overfunded whole life. And oh, yeah, you're doing this, you're doing that. Like, they're not surprised by those things. But
Right.
if that's not your normal environment, it's like it feels a little scary because you legitimately don't know a single other person that's managing their money the way that you are. And that
Yeah.
feels scary to us.
Well,
Yes.
it
Yes.
only seems complicated until you get familiarized with it, I
Yeah,
think.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think,
Yes.
because most of us weren't trained since childhood about financial education. Like we go to school, we
Mm-hmm.
learn arithmetic, we learn language, we learn sciences, but then I think financial education is sorely lacking in a lot of in a lot of our
Yeah,
education systems. And I think the
yeah,
best types of families with generational wealth teach that to their children,
yeah,
and then it becomes like second nature to them. And you're right. It was only when I met more people in my life that I realized that, oh, there are people like that. They're
yeah,
very different from me because I wasn't really brought up that way. Like my parents have an innate understanding of a lot of the things we just talked about because they're traditional Chinese parents.
yeah.
So they have rudimentary understanding of everything we just said, just not in fancy jargon, right?
Right.
But they sort of know that, oh, okay, if I put my money to work here, and if I can somehow get that money to work for me another time, I leverage more from my money. So
Yes.
it's all about leveraging.
Yeah.
And I think as they got older and they got more sophisticated with the way they invest their money, um, and especially with societal changes in this part of Asia, like our country has become one where it's evolved into like a banking and financial system kind of
Mm,
country now. Because back in the day, it was all about OEM production for other people. Like we would
mm-hmm.
make a lot of umbrellas, we would make a lot of toys, we'd make a lot of clothes and shoes, and then a lot of that got shifted to China and Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And then well, I'm in Taiwan, and then here in Taiwan, people started to understand how to work the financial system so that they don't essentially have to rely on exports alone
Yeah.
to survive. And so the banking sector, the financial sector, and the insurance sector just boomed. And I would say that over here in my part of the world, most of the major real estate, I would say upwards of maybe 65, 70% of the best real estate in the country are all owned by these major banks.
Mm,
Because what they did was they basically got so rich from working the financial system that they decided to just open up, more and more offices simply just to hold the land because they know
yeah.
that land's going to be worth more. So all this stuff that we're talking about today evolved from from an OEM mass production culture into like a financial savvy kind of culture, and this is where we are at today. And all the stuff that you mentioned, I realized that a lot of us weren't educated this way when we were growing
Yeah.
up. And that's why the first time we heard about it, it's always very like, it's so foreign. Like they might as well be speaking a different language, right, Emily? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then nowadays, I think we're getting a little bit more familiarized with it and we're starting to understand it more. And so, Reynold, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Like, if I were to be able to go back in time for 20 years ago to talk to my 20-year-old self, the conversation like, okay, like because back then, as a 20-year-old just graduating college, like, oh, you want to make big money as an Asian kid. That's all you're taught, to be the doctor, to be that rich
Right.
Asian uncle doctor, right? Yeah, that Emily's gonna talk to one day, right? And
Yeah.
then so that's it. You get a big job that pays you, back then, six figures was a lot, like six figures, seven figures. Okay, that's the goal. But no one taught me how to invest. But then if I could tell my back then, like, you don't need to be a doctor, you just need to, like what I'm going to say, be creative, understand the financial system,
Yeah, exactly.
understand the investment system. Like, back then when I was 20, like, okay, if someone told me just take $1,000 and put it in to Amazon when it's $5, I'd be a rich man right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
But
here.
no one
Right.
told me,
Yeah.
right? No one told me. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, like no one told me. I didn't even know what a stock brokerage account is. What is stocks? Like no one taught
Mm-mm.
me, like, what is
Same
it, right?
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
So
Yeah.
like if you just tell them, like, now it's so 2020, like, hindsight's 2020, right? Now everyone, back in our parents would say, yeah, but back then if I just invested in Microsoft or whatnot, yeah, we'll be rich. But the same thing. I mean, we have the same thing here. Like, okay, yeah, like just even five Nvidia, right? I was playing video games, right? And then who knew graphics cards, right? Nvidia was the graphics cards
Right.
to have, right? To when you're playing games, right? And then who knew, like, okay, that's gonna be, like, that's the stock, like, that would, like, would be the, like, start of the AI stuff. And
Yeah.
then boom, like, okay, yeah. But back then it was like, oh, I just want the latest graphics are from Nvidia, because I want smooth graphics for my games. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, other than, or someone could have taught me, like, hey, instead of buying that new car, maybe just use a use that money, buy like a few shares of Nvidia, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could buy a yeah, you could buy a lot of graphics cards later on in life with that, with how much it grew, right?
But
So
like you said, hindsight's always 2020.
yeah.
Back then, the allure or the pull of that shiny new car was too hard to resist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that's where, you know, we get to kind of like start to be the elders,
Mhm. Right.
even we don't need to wait until, we're super old and kind of shaking our finger and telling people like back in my day what,
Exactly.
it's like that's the thing. As you get older, you do gain wisdom. And yet, if we're not imparting that to younger generations and helping them see that, like, there are things that if you do it now can totally change your life over time.
Right.
And not hard things to do. We're not saying like take a job you don't want to take or don't buy a car and just use a bicycle. Like
Right.
we're talking about some basics like throwing a little bit of money into the stock market
Mhm.
or
Right.
setting up an overfunded whole life policy or there are other things too. That's just one example.
Mhm.
And Vic, I think your point is very salient too around um just the different economic opportunities in different
Mhm.
countries because the financial institutions are all set up a little differently in what's available and how you can kind of game the system and what the best investments are. I've been to Taiwan, by the way. It's a really
Oh,
beautiful country.
nice. Wow.
Yeah, rode the bullet train,
Nice.
um,
Nice.
ate stinky tofu.
Oh,
Oh wow.
wow. Seriously. Wow.
Emily
Okay.
Yeah,
ate sticky
High
tofu.
five.
Hey.
I need a lot of praise for that because I was sort of coerced into it, to be
Oh,
honest.
I'm sorry about
Um,
that.
but
Sorry to hear
I
that.
actually had one funny thing that happened too. We had a Taiwanese friend who was kind of hosting us, and we were together for like a kind of a dinner party gathering
Mhm.
at her home. And there was a guy there who approached my husband and I, and he's like, "Hey, do you have any connections for importing chicken feet? Because
Ooh.
if you do,
Right.
we can like crush this business
Yeah,
together.
we're gonna make a killing.
Yeah. We were like,
Chicken
unfortunately, no, but also like I love the entrepreneurial spirit that you have right now.
That's such a
Yes,
funny
yes.
story. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds so typical
Yeah,
Taiwanese too. Yeah.
yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Oh
he was
man.
100% serious. Like that was just
Yeah.
like the most,
Oh, I believe you. I believe you.
straightforward question to ask someone.
Right.
Like, hey,
And not just
Yeah.
anything too. I want chicken feet.
yeah,
Yeah.
let me be
They're very
specific.
specific. Yeah, they're very specific with the product because a
Oh
lot of
boy.
Taiwanese, right? They have this one connection and they just want to maximize it. It could be
Yeah.
chicken
We
feet.
do consume a lot of chicken feet over in this part of the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
totally
he's
legit
like, are the
question.
Americans just throwing them away? Because like we could do something with this.
Exactly.
But
So,
I'll give another example of a really unconventional tool that the wealthy use that can totally change your financial future. Um, and again, it's a bit country specific. So in the United States, almost no one has heard of this. And I've talked to really high net worth friends and everybody in between. No one's heard of this. I've even talked to folks at the bank and had them argue with me that this doesn't exist, even though I know that their own bank does it.
right.
And then I've talked to folks in other countries and they're like, oh yeah, we call that a such and such. And that's like really a totally standard
Mhm.
financial product. And so in the US, what I'm referring to, it's called a first position HELOC, or sometimes it's called an all-in-one loan. Have either of you guys ever heard of this?
Tell us about it.
Yeah. Yes, but Emily, go ahead. You can share.
Do you have one, Reynold?
No, I don't have one.
He wishes
Maybe
he
one
had
day
one.
I'll get one.
This would be
But
so
yeah, it's
Dave
not a common
Ramsey, by the
product,
way.
yeah.
If you love Dave Ramsey, this is all about like rapidly paying off debt.
Yes.
Okay, so the first position HELOC stands for home equity line of credit. And first position means where it's at in the line of people who would like get to repossess the house, right? If you stop making payments. And so usually your mortgage is in a first position. And typically people think about a HELOC as being in a second position, that you have your mortgage and then you also have a HELOC that sits on top of it. So this one's different because it replaces your mortgage. Now, one of the key differences is a HELOC is simple interest, whereas a mortgage is amortized interest. And so people get very proud of their mortgage interest rates. If they got a loan during the COVID era and they've got a 2% interest rate, like you will know about it because they are telling everyone.
You won't hear the end of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if
2%.
if you calculate the actual true interest rate of how much interest they will pay over the 30 years, it's over 100%. Usually you pay for your house twice.
Yes.
Which is not very exciting. Like 2% sounds awesome. And then you're like, oh, you pay for the house twice. Not as exciting, right?
Right. Or
Now-
maybe even 3 times.
Yeah. With a first position HELOC, it's sort of the reverse. The interest rate sounds higher because it's a variable interest rate and it's based on, whatever that day's like prime is. So right now it's like in the 7s, which does not sound appetizing to anyone, but it's simple interest and it's only calculated on whatever the daily principal balance is on the loan, which I'm going to get to why that's important in a minute. And so the effective interest rate of that loan ends up usually being around 2, 3, or 4%. And if you are a cash flow positive household, meaning your expenses are less than your income, you can take what would be a 30-year mortgage and typically pay it off in anywhere from 3 to 8 years without changing your income at all and without changing your expenses at all.
I see.
And the way that you do that is that a HELOC is a totally different kind of loan. With a traditional mortgage, you make a payment and that money is gone. Even if you have equity in your house, you can't just go to the bank and be like, hey, this month, can I like not make my payment? Or I made an extra payment last month. Could I have that back because I actually need like new brakes on my car? They're like, no, the money only goes one way. You pay it to us and we keep it, right? But with a HELOC, money goes two ways. You can put money into a HELOC and you can take money out of it. It's liquid. And so what that allows you to do is treat your HELOC like your checking account. All of your money goes in there. Pay everything you can on a credit card, and then the day before that credit card is due, pay the money out of the HELOC to the credit card. And because the interest is calculated every single day based on the balance of the account, that several $1,000s that gets to sit in your account for 20 days before it has to be paid is reducing your balance. And then that extra money that you have left over at the end of every month sits in your account and reduces your balance. Before I did this, we had other accounts that had $50,000, $100,000 in it that were kind of just like a rainy day fund, right? Just that emergency fund,
right?
That were sitting there basically doing nothing, earning like whatever a high yield interest savings account rate is, which is nothing exciting. Well, now I can put that into my HELOC. I would never put that towards a mortgage payment because then it's gone and then I don't have it, right? But if I throw it into my HELOC, it helps me pay off the house faster. It reduces how much interest I pay. And then if I need it, 1 second transfer, easy. It's out and I can use it for something. And so it's the wealthy use these kind of tools. And they are not at all perturbed by the fact that they're relatively unconventional or aren't well known. And when I went to do it, I'm like, aside from people on the internet that I learned about this strategy from, I don't know anybody who's doing this. And then again, I'm calling banks, talking to loan officers that are saying like, no, we don't have that. That doesn't exist. I'm like, but it does. And so it's like, you can take, if you think about it from a wealth perspective, if you can pay off your house in 4 years instead of 30, you're in a completely different financial situation.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
But it's a little scary because you're doing something unconventional.
But that begs the question though, right, Emily? Like, do you think these financial instruments are kept secret or hidden away on purpose by whoever, could be the banks, it could be the ultra wealthy. I don't know. Why don't more people know about these things? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, there's two really compelling reasons. One, I think, is more obvious than the other. So if I'm an insurance agent and I want to sell you a whole life policy, I get paid a commission based off of the premium. So if I sell you an off-the-shelf whole life policy and it's a $10,000 a year premium, I might get paid. Might get paid $10,000 for that.
Right.
If I customize it and turn it into an infinite bank, you can still put $10,000 in, but what we do is we make it so that the base premium is only like $2,500. That's your commitment, and then the rest is paid up additions. And so now I've cut my commission by 75% in order to structure it in a way that's better for you. Now, the same question, right? Yeah, the same is true if we look at mortgage brokers and loan officers. Do they make more money when we pay off our house in 4 years instead of 30? No. They make less money because the bank makes less money because less interest is paid, right? So they want to sell you those 30-year fixed mortgages, baby, and they want you to refinance every chance you can get, and they will tell you how great it is, right? So that's sort of the obvious reason, and I think that's relatively predominant. My second reason gets a little more fringe or conspiracy theory or what have you. But I do think that, like, generally speaking, the powers that be sort of prefer that people follow the program.
Sure.
And, like governments don't benefit from their citizens being like really wealthy and independent and free thinking.
Being financially savvy, right?
Yeah, like corporations and the government, they want you to work a job, get your W-2, put money into a 401k. So you
Right.
have to keep working until a certain age before you can access it. And it's like, it's like color in between the lines. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think that um, there is there are other forces that also want you to do the thing that you think is going to get you
Mm.
wealthy and make you financially free, but really kind of keeps you enslaved for
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the good years of your life. And then,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, maybe you get a few nice years of retirement before your health starts to fail you.
Yeah. Each individual is like, we're like commodities or products, right? They want to milk us for all we're worth from the day we're born till the day we
Oh,
die, right?
that's so true. Yeah, because I feel like okay, I'm very into financial freedom and everything. I'm sorry going through a rough patch, but the my idea is like not everyone wants to be a stock trader or a real estate mogul or whatnot,
Yeah.
right? But they would everyone would love to be financially free, right? So if I
Yeah.
were financially free, I mean, my choice wouldn't be like, okay, I'm going to run a real estate empire, like which
Just
everything
run your
like almost
podcast
yeah,
empire,
yeah,
Reynold.
yeah, right. Or I love beer, right? I always thought like, hey, if I had financial freedom, I just start a brewery or something.
There you
I
go.
could be a beer tender, right? Like or something like it's something easy and there, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like this. I'm not, of course, if I do that for as a career, I'm not going to get rich or anything, but but if I
But you
have
wouldn't need to.
yeah, I wouldn't need to. I would do some things. And I think a lot of people think if everyone was financial free, then we won't have people being, you know, working at restaurants or something. But sometimes people just like that easy, like, oh, I do want to work at a restaurant. I do want to work
Yeah.
at a bar and just serve people. And then, but I don't want to go home and still worry about my bills and my thing because, I don't want to do those high stress level jobs either. I don't want to be a doctor or lawyer or whatnot. Although it does pay good money. I mean, I'll do it because of the money. But once I'm financially free, I want to do something easy, like you know, work at a restaurant. Maybe we'll work at McDonald's. Actually, maybe not,
Well, isn't that
because
the argument?
that's might be a little stressful.
Hey, Reynolds, isn't that the argument for universal basic income actually from some people? That if all of us got UBI, then we'd be free to pursue what we wanted to do because we wouldn't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from,
Oh,
right?
that's true.
That's a basic argument for UBI.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think
But
they've done some studies that sort of show that inherently humans want to contribute and want to be doing something. And so the argument that like we would all just be, heathens and laying around on our couches or whatever, it doesn't really pan out. But it is also, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a pyramid. And at the top of it, do you guys know what that is at the top of the pyramid?
Self-actualization, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
And so it's like you're never going to self-actualize or even pursue service-based things or really creative endeavors when your
You're worried about
basic needs
survival.
for
Yeah.
survival aren't
yeah,
taken
yes,
care
yes,
of.
yes.
And so I think there's also an argument around a UBI type of scenario or with more of us being set free financially that we would actually usher in another renaissance age because when you look at historically when we've had a lot of scientific breakthroughs and a lot of really incredible art was created, it's like it was in areas geographically where it was pretty easy to survive. Like there was plentiful food, there
Yeah,
was
people
good
rich.
weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yes.
all the basic needs are taken care of. And so what do? We start sculpting, we start painting, we start looking at the stars, we start asking questions about how does this all work and start having these
Right,
incredible
right.
breakthroughs.
Yeah,
Right.
Emily's right. You don't even have to look that far. I mean, you can look at some of the Scandinavian countries to see how that's working out, right? Because their model is sort of like a semi socialist, so
Yeah.
semi utopian model. Actually, you make the argument for that because, for example, Norway, they have the sovereign fund. They get so much money from offshore oil that every Norwegian gets a slice of that pie, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gets money, everybody gets a stipend. So they do have very generous benefits for everyone, so that even if, let's say, tomorrow you get into a bad accident from your work and you're incapacitated for 2 years, 3 years, I mean, you're okay. You'd be able to
Yeah.
survive, right?
Yeah.
There are obviously downsides to that system as well, but I think what I'm trying to say is like you don't even have to look that far to see how that system's working out.
Yeah.
And if you really want to push it even further, you can even go into the realm of sci-fi and see how Star Trek kind of explored that topic, right? If you have the replicators and everybody gets food, right?
Yeah.
Or it's basically a
I'm
very
still waiting on mine, man.
it's basically a very high tech 3D printer, right? You can basically have the replicator make anything, right?
Yeah.
So people are now suddenly they free up their time, their imagination to sculpt, like Emily said. You can sculpt, do art, explore the cosmos, right?
Right.
So the interesting counter argument to that would always be like, yeah, that sounds so utopian, but what happens when society really heads towards that direction? Would people really be better off because of that? Or like, will people just start becoming all hedonistic and, like it's actually a dystopian future instead of a
Right.
utopian future? So that's a
Yeah.
very interesting question, right? But
Yeah.
to bring it back to where we are, to the actual use cases, you look at, like I said, the Scandinavian countries for that, or you look at the US for the complete opposite system, which is like you rely on yourself. It's a society where you have ample opportunities to make it big, but then there are also ample opportunities to just fail completely. And I think what Emily's trying to share with a lot of people, I think it's so important because if you don't understand financial systems or financial instruments, there's actually a lot of ways to make your life better. Only if you just took the time to understand some of it. It's not even that complicated actually once you get the basics, And like Emily said, you don't even have to like dive into it 100% or put away enormous amounts of money just to get benefits from it. Even just a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of money squirreled away in the right places would return great dividends for you for the rest of your life, and even for your children, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's spot on. I mean, Elon Musk has gone on the record recently saying like, don't even worry about saving for retirement because
AI would, make that
yeah,
obsolete,
basically
right?
like
Yeah.
AI is about to take over everything and
Mhm.
create so much
Mhm.
economically that everyone will be taken care of.
Yeah.
And I think how cool if that happens. And also, in the meantime, I'm going to be filling up my infinite banks, which, by the way, is money that's protected under a private contract with mutual insurance companies that have been around for hundreds of
Right.
years, and it's all like tax sheltered. Because if instead of going utopian, it does go dystopian, it's like you know you want to have your own storehouse, and
Yeah. Yeah.
perhaps you don't want the government knowing about all of this money that you've created. And again, I think that's a place that the wealthy are much better at, is around tax strategy. I've really been harping on or hating on 401ks, and I don't really hate them, but like, the wealthy are not looking to defer taxes, which is what the whole thing about a 401k. It's like, don't pay taxes now. And it's like, okay, but you got to pay them later. So, do we think the
Eventually.
taxes are going to go down? Like the debt in the U.S. keeps going up. So in theory, at some point, we're going to have to do something about that. And the government makes money through taxes. So,
Mhm.
the wealthy are much more strategic about not deferring taxes, but how do we avoid them altogether or
Right.
leverage these legal uh, shelters that
Right.
exist? And so then it's like, I'll pay what I'm legally required, but I'm not going to pay extra just because I'm too lazy or not willing to educate myself on a strategy that would put money over here where it doesn't get taxed.
Hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people buy properties just to write off taxes.
Oh
Like,
yeah, real estate's probably the best. If you really want a tax minimization strategy,
mhm.
uh, yeah, look to real estate because the accelerated depreciation and everything there is just really incredible.
Yeah, it's
Oh yeah.
interesting. We talk about all this stuff. Just the other day, I was looking at something online about you can divide up the world according to two camps financially. There's the Austrian model, and then there's the how do you pronounce it? Keynesian, Keynes. This
Oh, yes, yes, yes. He is like a famous like economist. I
Yes,
don't know
yes.
how you say it though.
Anyway, so if you divide up the world according to these two camps, right? The Austrian model believes in if you save money, you're supposed to get more. Whereas the other opposing model is what we're living through right now is the complete opposite, which is you got to spend more to stimulate the economy. So this is a really, really deep subject matter that people go to school for. But the gist of it is that since we're living in this great Keynesian experiment, I think all the stuff that Emily mentioned today is basically just understanding the rules of the game. It's like playing Monopoly, right? You got to know the rules of the game to play the game well. It doesn't matter. Our main question isn't like, oh, which school of thought is better. We're very practical, very realistic. We just know that whatever the reason, in 2026, this is the model that we've inherited by the powers that be, the generations that came before us. This is the model that we have. This is what's running the world. Fine. I just want to understand what are the rules of the game so that I can play the game better, so that I can make the most of the game. I
Yes.
think that's what being financially savvy is all about anyway. I mean, you can argue till the end of time about which model is better. I just want to get to work, and then
Yeah, yeah.
find out what actually would make me more wealth. That's the
Totally.
Asian part of me, just
Totally.
like coming out. Like
Yes.
that's all I care about, really.
Right.
Well, I'm with you. It's
Play
taking
to
the
win.
philosophical and making it practical and actionable. Like
Yes.
we can talk about it and think about it and pontificate on whether we like the financial model that we're living in all the way until our deathbed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or we can say, all right, like it or not, this is the game I'm in and here are the rules. So,
Mm,
how do I get strategic and play it
yeah.
even just 5% better or 10%
Exactly.
better? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
already a lot.
Yeah.
5 to 10% better is actually making you a lot of wealth. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the compound effect over time, right? We all said like,
Yeah.
dang, if we could go back 20 years and say
Right.
something to our
Oh
former self,
gosh.
right?
Yeah.
And so
My
it's like
gosh.
the second best time is always now. It's like start now, do something
Yeah.
Yeah.
different, and then in 20 years you'll be really happy you did.
Buy less
Yes.
comic books, Vic.
Right. Yes.
Don't
Right.
spend all your money in comic
Right.
books and
For
all
every
those
comic book you buy,
Buy more
buy a
Pokemon cards.
bar of silver.
There we go.
exactly. Yeah.
It's just balance, a little precious
Yes.
metals, a little comic reading,
Unless you know which. Well, if I remember, I was watching that Netflix show with the auction guy with the golden whatever golden. eh, Basically,
Mhm.
he got that wrestler, the Logan, to sell his
A Hulk
oh
Hogan.
no, Logan something is another wrestler, not Hulk Hogan. Logan
Logan
something.
Paul. Logan
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah. Where he sold his got him to sell his Pikachu Illustrator, right? That's like
Mhm.
worth $7 million now or something.
Okay.
But that's like the card, right? But
Yeah.
it's but you got to get really lucky with that, right? But
That's
you
one in
borrow.
a million, though. I'd rather just do like practical things like infinite,
Yeah,
banking, money glitch,
yeah,
investing in the
yeah.
stock market, and just understanding
Yeah.
how to work the system. I mean, that's real wealth.
I, I think in my opinion, these are all like techniques. So I'm a big martial arts guy. So these are all techniques and strategies, and we're we can't always. Well, this is only my opinion. We might not be good at everything. Like I've been trying to do real estate for a long time. So I mean,
Yes, you have. Yeah.
yeah, I have two
You know a lot about it.
rentals right now, and they're not really doing as good. They're not doing great. And then you know how people have a green thumb in growing plants, right?
Yeah.
Some, right? And then the ones that don't have a green thumb have, I don't know, brown thumb, right? Then you hire a gardener, right? So
Right,
Hmm.
right.
I'm at that stage where, okay, I'm not good at this. Well, there's a bunch of REITs, right? Real estate investment trusts that I can
Yeah.
invest in. There's other people good at the game, which I want to do. Instead of trying to do it myself, I I could put money towards there, right? So like I used to have a really big interest in day trading, right? I know it's very risky, but I had a lot of time, but then my eyesight is not very good since I'm blind, so I can't I can't look at the charts like everyone else and then do those quick moves like what you see on the YouTube, like So I was like, well, there's there's actually like other ETFs that they're doing like these sort of stuff, covered called that's sort of growing popularity right now. They call it even Chase, JP Morgan Chase has a equity fund that does that. It's just basically covered calls. So you get a monthly income. It's not geared towards growth. It's geared towards income. There's so much, and what I'm trying to say is there's so many tools that embraces these strategies that we are talking about, that Emily is talking about, where other people are more experienced that are doing it. We don't necessarily need to do it ourselves. Right. I think it's now with so many options, we can just put our money out and let it work for us. So the idea that it's not accessible, like we don't have the knowledge. Well, there's so many other people that have the knowledge that are doing it so much that I'm just gonna piggyback off them, right? That other rich Asian uncle, I'm gonna I'm gonna just give him like, hey, you know what to do, so let's do it together, right? Instead
or you can meet
another
Bernie Madoff and he'll run away with your money. That's also a possibility, right?
Well,
doing it in a more secure way. I'm not technically saying.
But I think you bring up a good point, because my role as a wealth strategist is to help my clients create a wealth system that will accumulate more resources for them. Right. What they do with those resources is going to be highly individualized. And, for some, more of it may actually just go to increasing lifestyle. For some, they are really into day trading, or they really like the stock market, or they like investing in precious metals, or they like real estate, or they like Pokemon cards. Like, there are truly, you can invest in almost anything, and you can, and not only am I not licensed to tell people like, oh, invest here, invest there, as far as like stocks go or what have you, but I just never would anyway, because I think like part of just having a wealth system in place and having these resources is then you getting to explore and learn what you're good at, what you like,
what works for you.
What works for you, and how hands-on you want to be, and to your point, Reynold, like there are people who can handle other things. And also, you brought up Bernie Madoff. Like, I've also put money in someone's hands that basically ended up being a Ponzi scheme. I lost 30 grand. I've done,
we've all been there.
I've done real estate investment fund things that seemed like I was like, this is so safe because it's all backed by real estate. It has this huge real estate portfolio behind it. And then it turns out that the people running it were total scammers. And so all the real estate existed, but they were taking people's money, and the real estate was supposed to be the safe asset. But they were then taking out loans against the real estate. And so it was so highly leveraged that there wasn't even equity there. So it's, that is part of building wealth too. Like, you're gonna screw up, you're gonna lose money along the way. You're gonna
make some mistakes along the way.
Like I would argue, like, you will not find a room full of high net worth individuals that are like, oh, I've never lost money on an investment. Like, it doesn't happen. They're all just going to be like, welcome to the club. Like, that is part of this process, is you're going to screw up and it'll be okay.
That's a good point, Emily. That's a good point, Emily. I'd still rather do that though, rather than the flip side. Cause I've tried the flip side, which is you grind it out 9 to 5, work for a major tech company. And I mean, seriously, how many years of your life can you give to like a machine where you're just a cog in the machine, right? I mean, okay, even if you're healthy, you exercise regularly, eat right, but the way they work you, it's a good 20, maybe if you're lucky, 25 years that you can give, And what do you get in return, right? So you put in your 401k, you get a little bit of this and that, health benefits. But then, I mean, at the end of your career, you think to yourself, like, that's not a lot, like
Right.
for all the effort that I put in. Whereas,
Yeah.
whereas if you spend a little time, even making mistakes, trying to learn more about these tools that are available for anybody, you realize that there's simply an easier way to make money work for you. And
Yeah.
I've discovered it a little bit late in my life, but like you said, Emily, better late than never, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be on that side. And, there are risks involved, obviously, but still better than grinding it as a corporate cog or a slave for 20, 30 years of my life. I'd rather not be doing that.
100%. Yeah. Corporate America wasn't for me either. Now, granted, I have clients who are absolutely crushing it in corporate, who are wealthier than a lot of entrepreneurs and really love their jobs. So it's like everybody's
Sure.
situation's
There's always
different.
an exception.
But I do think, it's like our time is so precious and it is this like really limited resource. And so
Mm-hmm.
making sure that our work feels like play
Mm-hmm.
is important. It's like we should like what we're doing. We should
Yeah.
feel satisfied at the end of the day and at the end of the week because it is such a significant portion of our life that
Yeah.
that it's like when somebody's reading your obituary, it's like you don't want it to be like, well, he suffered through a job that he hated for many
30
decades.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like even the most, even the best employees. I'll give you an example. Like my brother-in-law, he works for a major tech company here in Taiwan. He makes a lot of money, but he's also very savvy at investing his money,
Yeah.
So like Reynold and I always like to use this word side hustle. It has such a dirty ring to it. But
Yeah.
actually, if you think about it, it's just a plan B or like
Yeah.
get something going um, in parallel with what you're
Yes.
doing. Just so
Yeah.
that you have A, extra income, or B, if your main thing fails, you have something to fall back on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like even the best employees that I know, they would really educate themselves with all these financial tools and instruments that are available and try to put some of their hard-earned money because they're grinding it out, right?
Right.
Into something that would give them returns and make them feel tremendously satisfied to see their wealth grow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That the dollars that you're earning through a job that you don't love are the hardest dollars.
Oh yeah.
So if those dollars can then go multiply and make money babies,
Woohoo!
that's so much better
I know, right?
than if it's just spent and gone. And it's like, I feel so bad for people who are working like minimum wage jobs, right? Especially here in the US because the minimum wage is so low. And it's like, you go to whatever, like Jimmy John's, and you want to get a sub sandwich with chips and a drink, and you go like, my God, if you were working minimum wage, you would have to work 3 hours
Yeah.
to pay for this lunch, kind of a fast
I
food
know.
sort of a lunch. Like
It
what
just
the
doesn't
heck?
add up, right? The
It
math
doesn't add
isn't
up.
adding
No.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Right. Yeah.
that's so true. Yeah. So
Wow. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, Reynold, like, do you think it's too late? We're in our 40s, right? How many good years do we have left to kind of make up for lost time? Trying to undo some of the mistakes that we've done.
I think the mindset when it comes to this investing to this wealth thing is that it's not to say it's too late. I think what Emily says that just start now. I mean, anything. There's so many stories where they even start at their 60s, and yet they're 60, right? They're sort of like really running out of time, right? So, or right, and then yet they could still make it. I think it's just maybe being more creative. Some people think creative is more risk, but there's creative ways where it's not risky as as we think. Everyone thinks that creative is to think differently. That means take on more risk. But like Emily is saying, like this infinite bank is creative, but it's not as risk. It's not risky in a sense. There's a lot of things.
It's way less risk.
Yeah. There's a lot of things out there. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and you're a real estate guy, Reynolds. So it's like
Yeah.
in real estate, they talk about creative financing.
Hmm.
And that it doesn't mean more risk. It just
Yeah.
means it's a different way of doing it, right? Like a lot of
Yes.
people, if you said like, hey, um, you know, I want to buy a house, but I have bad credit and I don't have any down payment, they would say like, well, good luck. Like that's not going to happen. Right. But we know with creative finance, it actually can happen. Like you can buy a house sub two, which means that the existing mortgage stays in place. There's no credit check, there's no financial whatever. And, the whole thing can be kind of seller financed, or it's a very low down payment. You get the house for 7 grand cash up front. It's just one example, but it's it's being willing to explore alternatives, but it doesn't mean more risk.
Yeah. Among the Chinese, we have this saying called 天时地利人和. So that basically translates to all your stars have to be aligned
Mm,
for successful ventures to happen, right? Including making wealth. Um, if you think about it, the one part you can control out of these all, because it's four things, right? 天时, so it's like it's heaven, right?
mm-hmm,
天时地理, it's geography, earth.
mm-hmm.
Uh, 人和 people. Okay, so the one thing you can control out of all these different, things that have to align is your part.
Yeah,
You educating yourself and you learning how to acquire the right tools so that when the opportunities do line up,
yeah,
you're ready for it, right? So if you
yeah,
think about it, this is the only part that we can actually have any say or definite control over. So it pays to educate yourself financially. And then when the other things come, right? This is call it what you will, luck, karma, good fortune, whatever you want to call it. When it does come knocking at your door, hey, you're
yeah,
prepared, right?
yeah,
Yeah, this is something that us Chinese people love. We love talking about this.
yeah. I totally agree. I do think there's luck in business ventures and wealth and everything, and I think we make our luck. So it's like
Hmm.
those two things together, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I was listening to a podcast that talked about, I think it was, the premise was Big Magic, which is like Elizabeth Gilbert's book with that's all about like ideas and inspiration.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it basically was saying like, let inspiration find you already working at your desk.
I love that. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the
Yeah.
concept is like you're not just going to be laying on your couch and then inspiration strikes and you get this great idea. It's
Hmm.
like you do the work and then
Hmm.
the inspiration comes and
Hmm.
supercharges everything, but it's like
Yeah.
you have to give your part.
Sometimes I also think that it's not really a choice anymore, too. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned a while ago how, our country and our economy has kind of evolved to the way it is now. And I realized that for you to survive and thrive, it's not even a choice anymore in the sense that you really got to learn these things because the economy has transformed into an economy that is all about banking and leveraging these financial
Yeah.
instruments. And it's not like in the days of our parents, for example. Me and Reynold talk about this constantly in our other episodes, where, back in the day, you just have to, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you're
Yeah.
willing to
Yeah.
work hard and
Yeah.
you'll make it because, the whole country was sorely needing every type of service, right? So,
Yeah.
so long as you're willing to work, the government was very happy to write you a check, give you some credit.
Right.
You go out there and you do something. But it's not like that anymore, right?
Right.
These days,
Yeah.
everything is so competitive. It's been monopolized. All the industries are settled down. And so, for an up and coming person who's out of college, for example, what options do they have left? So actually, it's not even a choice anymore. They have no choice but to learn these financial instruments because this is what's left. This is what's
Mm,
gonna help them make that money so they can actually get married, have
yeah.
children, buy a home, buy a
Yeah.
car, right? Because if you look at the average annual salary of somebody working here in a pretty decent job, you're not gonna have enough for all of that. And then
Yeah.
that compounds a problem of population. That's why population is tanking in East Asia, right? Because nobody can afford to have children, right?
Right.
You got to work, and even if you go to a good company and you make pretty high salary compared to your peers, but just the pressure of having, having to make that money, and your wife has to make that money too, by the way. It's dual income just to afford that lifestyle. You don't have anything left to raise kids or buy
Yeah.
your own home, right? So I think you don't have a choice. You got to learn it. And once you learn it, like for me, example, if I use myself as an example, I realized that, wow, it's so much easier if I just put money in the right places, for example, in the stock market, you know, the money that returns to me is something that I would have to work on maybe 6 months to 7 months in a year just to get
Yes.
that back in the old days. And I'm like, why didn't I learn this sooner?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
could have been doing this, 10, 15 years ago, right? But then
Yeah.
you just didn't know, or even if you knew about it, you had to spend that time to make mistakes or get enough of that seed money to get it going, right? You got to
Yeah.
grind a couple of years in, yeah. So there's just no way to avoid it, yeah.
Yeah. It's very true.
No, it's so true. Yeah, it's like my grandparents' generation. It was like grandpa could just work a blue collar job, wife
Yeah,
could stay
everybody,
home.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they could, have a family of like four or
Yeah,
five all taken
Right.
care of.
Yes.
And, their house cost like this tiny percentage of the
Right.
exactly.
Yes.
salary. And it's not that way anymore. We know it. We know it's not.
Mhm.
But yet, if we're trying to sort of replicate that same way of living where it's like, oh, okay, I'll just get a job and I'll save up and I'll be able to afford a home and stuff. It's like there's a reason it's not happening because the
Yeah,
economics have totally changed. And
yeah.
and for us, it was like, we use money from our infinite banks to put a down payment on our house and put it in a first position HELOC so that it will be paid off in 4 years. And like we're leveraging all these different kinds of strategies that
Mhm.
allow us to do so much better than we would be otherwise. And
Yeah.
Right.
and like you say, it's kind of a new paradigm versus old paradigm, and you've got to
Mhm.
pick up these new paradigm tools if you want to be successful.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Very
I
true.
don't know
Very
what was
true.
the aversion on my part, you know, all those years ago, not to learn these things. I don't know. It had such a negative connotation back then because I just think we weren't savvy enough to understand these things. And therefore, because you don't understand it, you look at it in a negative light. Like I remember
Yeah.
back in the day when people told me about ETFs or just playing the stock market, I'd be like, ew, that's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's such a low way of making money. Oh, you're probably not good enough at your job,
Right.
Look at
Or it's too,
me.
or is it, I think it's too slow because I was running a small business and it's like, um, you're seeing either you see the profits or not like week by week, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes, but in the stock market, unless you're a day trader, even if a day trader, you're really buying and selling with a fraction of increments, right? You're not. It's not like, oh, you buy once, you buy and sell, and then it's a big whole lump sum, right? Unless you really get lucky, but unless
Yeah.
you gotta start with a large money in order to have that. But if you're starting with a little money, then you're really just like, okay, making $10 here, $5 here,
Yeah.
or even $1, right? And then that's a win if you come out with that trade as a positive. Where I'm like, okay, that's sort of like that's like small potatoes compared to, okay, I'm running a business and then every week is like thousands or tens of thousands
Right.
churning, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna do my business, put more into the business where I could have just like, okay, think of it, okay, can this how long will this business survive, how long can I do it, because I'm running on 7 days a week 24/7,
Right.
and then
Right.
like, right, but then I was like, okay, but I'm making more than if I put it into the market. But then looking back, like Vic says, if I just did that, like I'll be super set right now. I mean, I
Yeah.
would have dividends coming in every month and every quarter. I would have Nvidia stock growing.
Randall, I think part of it is just the fear because we've heard so many stories of people who played the market and lost everything. I think part of it is the fear and misinformation. We didn't understand it enough. And also, it wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have to account for inflation. I think if the traditional model, which is like, for example, if you're
Yeah.
selling boba tea, for every cup you sell, you get $40, and then you just have to sell 1,000 cups a day. I mean, it's such a slow way to make money, but fine if that's what you're into. And if you don't have to account for inflation, that's okay, right? But then you're constantly, because of inflation, just trying to catch up. Your
Yeah.
money is just worth less and less every day. You earn X amount of money, you put it in the bank, and automatically some of it is reduced because of inflation, right? So you're never going to catch up if you just do it the old model. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah. So you gotta learn both.
my opinion when on that fear, because I had that fear too. Like, oh, what are we? Because when you invest in the stock market back then, parents say, oh, be careful. What if it goes to zero? And then now I'm learning that there's enough rich people in this world, richer than me, that will not allow that. Even if the world was free, burning, and like natural disasters everywhere, somewhat, all the rich people will try to be saving the stock market because that's
Yeah, gotta keep the system
their
going,
wealth.
right? Because they
It
benefit
could be
from
Right,
that.
the
right.
end of the world, and then they're like, oh, but we got to save the stock market.
Yeah. Yeah. My take with the stock market is like, overall, it always goes up and to the right. So it's fine, like as a long-term hold. Where it's tricky is if you need liquidity and
It's
or
tied up in the markets. Yeah.
yeah, or if you're not in an accumulation phase of life, right? Because it's even the volatility is good for accumulating, right? Because you can buy
Hmm.
more when it's lower. But
Right.
when you're in the spend phase where now you have all your money in a 401k and you have to live off of it, now volatility is extremely problematic because you have to take the money out regardless of where the market's at because you're living on it. And so um, there are different strategies that help you hedge against that. But you know, I do think like thinking longer term and not just being in the day to day of our business or where can I make the most money today, but it's like, okay, at least some of my money, like let's just put it in a future fund. Let's think about like how to let this money compound over time
Hmm.
and just appreciate the fact that like in the the same thing with real estate. It's like the market always goes up and to the right. So if you're okay to hold for a long time, it's always going to be fine. Same thing with the stock market. It's just that liquidity piece, or if you need to cash out at a certain time, you need to cash out that it gets tricky. So, um, you know, even all of us that are in our 40s, it's like we still have a lot of time before we're saying we're not going to earn anymore and we have to just start spending based on what we've accumulated. And so when you're in the accumulation phase, you can just kind of set and forget a lot of stuff for a long time. And then when you look at it, it's like, hey, it did great. Awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of real estate, Emily, did you know that culturally, why real estate prices are the way they are here in Asia has a lot to do with our culture. For example, Hong Kong real estate prices are some of the craziest in the world, right? Taiwan real estate is so expensive in all the prime cities. Same thing with Singapore. Japan might be the only exception, but that's a different matter.
But I
But
think in Japan and maybe even in parts of China, aren't there like whole towns that were like built and
yeah,
then
the
no one,
ghost towns.
yeah,
Yeah.
like these
But
ghost towns, people bought brand new real
that
estate and just never lived
Yeah.
in it. Like this,
that's
this
a
is a uniquely Asian thing, I
yeah,
think.
that's a whole separate bag of stuff that we can talk about. But going back to what I was saying about, all these other East Asian countries, culturally, as Chinese, we have three things that we hold most dear in life, right? One we call 房子, which is your place of dwelling. 房子.
Mm,
Two would be 金子, gold, money,
hmm.
right? Three would be 子子, it's like children, right?
Yeah.
儿子, so like our children. The three things we hold most dear in life, and I think this is pretty universal across the world, right? But this is very Chinese. And the reason why real estate prices keep shooting up is because of this entrenched cultural belief among Chinese people that, oh, you got to have a house. This
Mm,
is
hmm.
you can work your whole life, and what you're striving and aiming for is to have a place of dwelling that you can call your
Mm,
own. This is ingrained in our culture.
yeah.
So real estate is so crazy here. It keeps going up. occasionally there would be a bubble, but then, pretty soon
Yeah.
it would catch up again, right?
Yeah.
And I think uh, knowing that the way to play the real estate market in Asia is really quite interesting because if you're trying to get a prime location in within the city, for example, it's like San Francisco. It's just never going to go down. No
Right.
matter how
Right.
shitty it gets, no matter how many homeless people there are, no matter how many needles you find in the streets, it's just going to be that expensive because it's
Yeah.
San Francisco, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing with Taipei. Same thing with, Singapore or just like downtown Hong Kong, right? So, for example, my parents, what they do is every time they would make a lot of money, they would ask us to go out there and find real estate, And I
Mm.
said, why not put it in, some of the products that the banks are selling, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
good interest. Or don't you want to put some of it in the stock market? And they're like, we understand all those things are good and they make money, but we're from that generation where we just love real estate and
Mm.
we're too old to really, go into all the ups and downs, all that volatility
Yeah.
that those two other instruments give us. Whereas in real estate here in Asia, it's a sure bet.
Yeah.
Even if I bought it at a, semi-high price, but I know it's just going to keep going up.
Yeah.
It's a sure bet. I can put it there, I can make rent from it, or I can sell it when I need the money, right?
Yeah.
So what we do over here in this part of the world is we would generally buy several properties, and then other wealth that we have, we would probably put it into these financial instruments that I mentioned. It's becoming more and more normal since 15, 20 years ago. And other parts of our wealth, we would probably invest in businesses owned by our friends.
Mm.
Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
we're so entrepreneurial. We're like, oh, you have a
Mm-hmm.
good idea? Oh, you want to start a barbecue stand? All right, that sounds kind of dodgy because there are 20 other barbecue stands nearby. But all right, you're my friend. I'll do it.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, though, like that's how we usually spread our money around. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It has its pros and cons, but I think everything is kind of tied up to the financial system of the US. So it pays to learn all these things that you're talking about, that you're teaching people, because if you understand these things, they're pretty universal across the board for people that follow the same banking system. And it's the same here in Asia.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely fine tuned in each country, but you know, when you're going back to the idea of monopoly, when you can just understand that you're playing a game and decide that you're going to learn the rules of the game, whether you're in Taiwan, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in Canada or wherever, then you're going to get better and you're going to start winning. And winning will look different for everyone. Not everyone wants, 7, 8, 9 figures of net worth, but maybe they just want to be able to retire 5 years earlier. Maybe they want to leave their corporate job and or whatever. Maybe they want to be able to pass more money to their kids or just to own their own home. You're going to get there faster when you learn how to play the game. And the rules might vary slightly from country to country, but the concepts I think are pretty
Yeah.
universal.
Hey, Reynold, if we start winning, maybe our parents will finally love us.
Right. It all comes down to that again, right? We just want our parents to
I just
love
want
us,
a
so we got
hug. I just
right.
want validation from my folks. Maybe if we
If I
start
have
winning
more
more, they'll
wealth,
start
they'll love,
loving us
right?
more.
If I have 10 homes, they'll love me 10 times more.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
that's such an Asian thing.
Yeah, way to wrap it all up and into your angry Asian uncles.
right.
We just want
Yes, exactly.
acceptance from our parents.
Right, exactly. The bigger my bank account, the more love I get. Yes.
So the takeaway from today is listen to Emily, listen to what
Yeah.
she has to say, so that your parents will finally love you. Okay, because you're successful. That's how Asian parents are, right? They equate success
Oh,
with love, right?
yes, exactly. Right. Oh man.
Oh my
But
God.
yes.
Well, thank you guys so much
No,
for
thank
having me
you.
on the show.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so
Oh,
much
but
for coming on. It was so
yes.
much
Do you
fun.
have Emily? We do like to say if you have like a take home message for everyone, like you know, or
Yeah,
a
yeah. I
nugget of
mean,
wisdom, like just to wrap it all up. Yeah.
yeah, I think this will come as no surprise. Just to wrap it all up in a bow, The wealthy are playing the game of wealth differently. And it is the easiest way to let yourself off the hook is to say, well, I don't make enough money. And that's why I'm not at the level that they're at. But the way that you can actually make a difference is to start leveraging some of those same tools.
Mm-hmm.
Start using unconventional wealth strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if that's something that you want to do, you're welcome to reach out to me. My website is emilywilcox.com. I'm on social media at mmakesmoney. And, let's have a conversation and see if I can help you. And if I'm not the wealth strategist you want, go find somebody else. But start leveraging some of these unconventional ways for wealth.
Yeah, it doesn't get more direct than that. M makes money, right?
That's
right.
All you Asian uncles out there and aunties, right?
Right.
This doesn't get more direct than that. You want to make wealth?
Right.
This is the person to talk to, right?
Let's make money, right?
Right,
Oh,
right.
Vic, do you want to add anything else? Other than
No,
parents'
I just
slogans?
want love from my parents, and therefore I got to go make some more money. Yes,
Right? We gotta
just put out the tools to use. Yes.
we gotta have Emily on some more so we can make that money and get more love from our parents. I
Yeah.
think that's my takeaway.
Perfect. Perfect.
Right? Exactly. But
Oh
thank
boy.
you so much, Emily, for joining us. Let me thank our audience for again tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Again, sharing is caring, and hope to have you on again in the future, Emily.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for giving
Thank
us
you.
so many things to think about.
My
Yes.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.